On Thursday, June 17th, Joe Biden signed into law Juneteenth officially as a federal holiday.
It's open. That's the first one.
But a lot of people don't know what Juneteenth is. On July 4th, 1776, the 13 colonies of the United States declared themselves free from British rule with the publishing of the Declaration of Independence. Just 27 days later, on August 2nd, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was officially signed, formally freeing the 13 original colonies from British rule. The Declaration of Independence states that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. At this moment, Americans were officially free and was well on its way to becoming the great free nation that it was today. Right? Right? 2 hours, 31 seconds. Well, yes and no. It's true that citizens were free at this point, but the issue was black people were not yet considered citizens or even people at that point. They were viewed as property. We still have 89 years, 45 days, 22 hours, 31 seconds, and 12 milliseconds before we're beyond that point of black people no longer being viewed as property and slavery was officially over. Well, I made up the hours, seconds, milliseconds, but everything else is completely true. Very long way before black people were legally free in this country. So let's rewind.
Keep it 100, I be feeling like Campbell soup over white rice, baked chicken with the skin on, yeah, Lowry's with black pepper, I'm fully seasoned with laughter.
Of the date or even the year that slavery of Africans began in America, because slavery of Africans in America can be traced as far back as 1526, but 1519 is the year Africans were brought to North America as cargo, so we'll go with that. In 1619, Africans were taken from Central and West America and brought to North America, and brought to North America, and brought to North America. For 50 years, the institution was legal, and an estimated 645,000 Africans were imported to what would become America. Slavery was legal throughout the 13 colonies for the next 16 years until 1735, when it was banned in Georgia for just 15 years. After the American Revolution, northern states one by one passed emancipation laws as the South further committed to slavery. Emancipation laws out of the kindness of their hearts or for altruistic reasons. The North then passed emancipation laws out of the kindness of their hearts or for altruistic reasons. They did so because the Industrial Revolution began in America in 1760, and the North quickly realized that it was much more expensive to keep slaves than vice versa, while the South viewed things differently. Did not and still does not have the climate conducive for growing crops. Especially the money crop, which was cotton, while the South had the perfect climate for that. At the time, technology didn't exist to extract the seed to make cotton, so whites in the South used their property black people to extract the seeds from cotton. And they were too lazy to do it themselves. So I wonder how the whole black lazy stereotype got started when... So, this brings us to the election of 1860. There were 4 candidates in the race with different platforms. The candidates were Abraham Lincoln of Illinois, who represented the Republican Party, who ran on the platform of stopping the spread of slavery into new territories. John Bell of Tennessee represented the Constitutional Party, believed in protecting slavery as it was allowed in the Constitution, but wanted to prevent its spread to keep peace and preserve the Union. John Breckinridge of Kentucky represented the Southern faction of the Democratic Party, wanted the right to own slaves to be protected in territories by federal slave code, and when a territory became a state, the settlers would decide if slavery should be allowed or not. Today, that's where the whole states' rights argument comes from. And finally, Stephen Douglas of Illinois represented the northern faction of the Democratic Party. He believed in the idea of popular sovereignty, that the people should decide for themselves if slavery will exist in their territory, and new states without a federal slave code. So if you noticed, none of the candidates had in their platform that they wanted to abolish slavery. And that's because none of them did. As we all know, Abraham Lincoln won the election of 1860 and became the 16th President of the United States. The Southern states saw him as a threat to their power and their ability to uphold slavery. Abraham Lincoln's goal was to preserve the Union at all costs. He said, "My paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union, and it's not to either save or destroy slavery. If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would do that also." So Abraham Lincoln clearly didn't care about freeing the slaves. He was rather indifferent to freeing the slaves. He didn't really care. The only thing he really wanted to do, his prime objective, was to preserve the Union. A month after the election was made official, on December 20th, 1860, South Carolina seceded from the Union, followed by 6 other states in the spring of 1861. Shortly after, on April 12, 1861, the U.S. Civil War began. The South calls it, some even still to this day, the War of Northern Aggression. The South was known as the Confederate States of America, while the North was known as the Union. About 4 years to the date, on April 9th, 1865, the Union seceded in the bloodiest war in the history of the U.S. A little side note here. It's funny how the Republicans pretend that there wasn't a political realignment in the 1960s with the Democratic and Republican parties essentially switching platforms, when today Republicans still rep the Confederate flag while the Republicans defeated the Confederates. So they seem a bit confused. They're repping the Confederate flag while saying they're the party of Abraham Lincoln that freed the slaves. So are you a party that reps the pro-slavery side, or are you the party that was anti-slavery? So conservatives, figure it out. That's another video for another day. I'm going to be debunking that myth at some point. So now, back to the video. After the South surrendered, the process of freeing slaves began, and on June 19th, 1865, the final slave was freed in Texas. And that's how we got Juneteenth today. 155 years and 363 days later, Juneteenth was signed into federal law by President Joe Biden. So that's an abridged version of the history of Juneteenth, the real Independence Day, because that's when all Americans were officially freed, except those in prison. That's with the 13th Amendment. That's a topic I'm going to expand on in another video. So we still have a lot more work to do getting rid of slavery in prison. The drug war is essentially a new way to put mostly blacks back into slavery. And that's not just conjecture. The drug war was created by Richard Nixon to target blacks and white people who were hippies. So the way that manifested is today, black people are locked up at 10 times the rate for using the same drugs that white people do, mostly marijuana. And black people are locked up at 4 times the rate of white people for selling drugs. And more people are arrested for the use of marijuana, not even the sale of it, than all violent crimes combined, with the vast majority of those people being black. So look, we still have a long way to go before progress is fully made. We have to work on reforming the police completely. Not going to get into that in this video, but I've talked about it in other videos, like my George Floyd documentary. We have to end many discriminatory practices that still go on to this day, like discrimination in banking and the ability to get loans, the police brutality that we still face today, the racial wealth gap which needs to be addressed because whites were able to build that over generations and generations, while blacks were still viewed as poverty. And when they were finally free from slavery, they started from scratch while white people had hundreds of years to build wealth. So there's still a lot that we need to address. Before we see enough progress being made, well, it's about damn time that Juneteenth is recognized as a federal law. The real Independence Day. So that's all I gotta say for this video. If you like the content, like and subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications, I'll post videos in the future. But I gotta leave you with one more thing before the video is over, and that's the word of the day. The word of the day for today is unalienable or inalienable. You can use it interchangeably. But inalienable is more so used today than unalienable. Inalienable is spelled I-N-A-L-I-E-N-A-B-L-E. The definition of inalienable is unable to be taken away from or given away by possessor. So now I will attempt to use inalienable in a sentence. The inalienable rights that were afforded to white people generations ago were only somewhat recently afforded to blacks. Hopefully I used that sentence correctly. So again, if you like the content, like and subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so I post videos in the future. Use inalienable in the comment section below so you watch the video to the end. So that's all I gotta say for the video. Watch my George Floyd documentary. The George Floyd documentary is about the system that allowed George Floyd to be murdered, how much progress we made in it last year, if any, and just how much we need to go before actual justice is served. So that's all I gotta say for this video. Like, I'm not sure what I said before, but I have a Patreon account now. If you want to donate anywhere between $3 to $10 a month, it helps me grow the channel massively. We really appreciate it. My Patreon is www.patreon.com/keepit100dre. So anything you can donate if you can, it'd be very much appreciated. If not, I still love you anyways. Subscribe to the channel, it helps the channel grow massively. Other than that, I appreciate y'all watching. 100%. Black is beautiful. Happy Juneteenth. Peace.
Well, I've been stacking up. Nah, really, that ain't accurate, cause I just spent my whole damn advance in the past couple months just to compensate for times we ain't have enough. Ooh.